Could parts of the story of Jesus have been made up by the disciples before they wrote the Gospels? There are 4 biographies of Jesus in the Bible. They are known of as the 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. What is of note is that they were not written years later. They were written by eyewitnesses of Jesus' life or by their associates within their lifetimes. So we're not talking at all about stories that were passed on or about any big time gaps. Secondly, the biggest claim of the New Testament is the resurrection of Jesus. Surprisingly, current scholarship confirms that it can be proven that the disciples were convinced of this, not 100 or 50 or 20 years later, but just 3 to 5 years later. For example, there is a creed found in 1 Corinthians 15 in the Bible, which says Christ died, He was buried, He was raised, and He appeared to Peter and James, and so on. It is a quoted poem. Today, even radical New Testament critics like Robert Funk, founder of the Jesus Seminar, are willing to admit that this creed came about within 2 or 3 years of Jesus' death. Other respected New Testament scholars have come up with a similar conclusion. It's an agreed upon evidence that shows that the disciples were completely convinced of what they wrote from the beginning. It wasn't made up later. So when did they write it down? All within 30 to 60 years of Jesus' death and resurrection. Most of the books of the New Testament were written by AD 65. The Gospel of John is traditionally believed to have been written as late as AD 90, though most scholars today suggest it was written earlier in about 75 or 80 AD. And in all cases, it's John, one of the best friends of Jesus, who wrote it down. That isn't being questioned. To give you some examples, respected archaeologist William Albright says there is no longer any solid basis for dating any book of the New Testament after about AD 80. And these days, even liberal theologians who sometimes don't believe much of the Bible have changed their dating of the New Testament books. For example, John A.T. Robinson now believes these books were probably written between 50 and 75 AD. What does it all mean? If we're looking for a way to explain away the biographies of Jesus as made-up stories, there's not much room to do so. They were written by eyewitnesses of Jesus' life and their associates, while all the other eyewitnesses of Jesus' life were still alive. The men who wrote the biographies seem to have been men of the highest integrity, not the kind to lie. And even the biggest of all their claims that Jesus rose from death can be shown historically to be something they were convinced of from the beginning. Could they have made the stories up? This doesn't seem to be an option. The question then is, what caused them to become immediately convinced? The most logical conclusion is that the miracles happened.